Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about something that can literally make or break your base, setting powders. And not just setting powders that work to set everything, but setting powders that avoid the creasing, the caking, the settling into fine lines, everything bad that can happen. Now, if you're in your 30s or even over that into your 40s, whatever, you know how hard it is to find a setting powder that doesn't make you look like it's so dry, so cakey, and just make everything look even more obvious. Like a bad setting powder and a bad technique paired with that can actually make you look 10 years older. Don't you just hate it when you've done your base and everything looks really flawless and seamless, and then you apply your powder and it just completely changes and it doesn't look anything like you want it to look? Like, you still want your skin to look like skin but better, and the powder just ruins that. But at the same time, if you don't apply the powder, then it's not going to last all day. So it's kind of like a catch-22 sometimes. But I have rounded up the best setting powders that don't crease, cake or settle in your lines, and it definitely doesn't look cakey. I'm going to talk you through exactly why each one works, how to apply it, what it looks like, and why I think you're going to love them. Because I know it can be really daunting to buy a setting powder when you're an average consumer and you are not in the industry that I'm at. I know how daunting it can be when you go out trying to spend your money on a good setting powder only to find it doesn't end up working, and then it's a complete waste. So I want to share with you the best setting powders so that you can ensure that your money is well spent and you can take your pick out of which one out of all of these that will work. The first one is the Laura Mercier setting powder, but the Ultra Blur one. It's the upgraded version of the original iconic setting powder. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like the OG and I just felt like it just wasn't as good as what people were making out. But this Ultra Blur version, oh my god, this is officially the OG. It is so good. If you want a softer, kind of blurred finish to your skin, then this is going to work perfectly for you. Now let me go through exactly what's so good about this. The reason why this doesn't cake on the skin is it is very, very finely milled. It's talc free, and it also contains amino acid powders that actually help to like blur the skin. So imagine where you have texture and you're trying to smooth it out, it's going to help to blur those areas. I personally find that this is way more forgiving on mature and textured or dry skin, and I feel like the original version wasn't as forgiving. Like, it could end up sometimes looking a bit powdery on those areas or just cake up a little bit. This one works perfectly for if you are going into your 40s or even above that, and if you're dealing with dry skin. I personally feel like this specific powder is best for kind of like dry skin, combination skin, anyone who's dealing with texture or fine lines. Now the best way to apply this, I personally feel, is using a powder puff or a brush. So if you're going to use a velour powder puff, I would actually suggest the Laura Mercier powder puff. It's one of the best ones around. I've been using it for years and it's really easy to clean. So you just wash it as normal and it's good to go. It's a really good quality powder puff. So I would basically press it into the powder and then actually go into the palm of the hand or directly onto the skin, because it's such an ultra fine milled powder that even if you were to go in the powder directly on the skin, you're not getting that horrible cakey look. And then I would immediately brush it off. You don't need to cake. I think when you have, like, when you're trying to avoid the cakey look and trying to avoid your texture looking even more obvious, I would not bake, because baking is just going to make everything look just a little bit more obvious, and you don't want that. It might make your makeup stay on longer, but it's also going to make you look more cakey. So use a brush like the Real Technique setting brush, dip it into the powder, just dab a little, like tap a little bit off the brush, and then press it into the skin. This powder gives you like a really nice diffused look to the skin, especially if you are using either a powder brush or a brush. Now a little tip for you, when applying your powder, I would highly suggest when you've applied your foundation and you're ready to go straight into your powder, I would actually let everything like your concealer and foundation, let it settle for a couple of minutes. So let it just self-set a little bit. And the reason for that is because when you apply your powder, you're basically applying it to something which isn't overly wet, so it isn't going to kind of like be uneven. You're going to get a much more seamless, even finish that way. Next up is the Huda Beauty Easy Bake setting powder. Now this one is probably one of the most mattifying powders in my collection that I'm going to share with you, but I do feel like it still somehow doesn't cake or crease or feel dry, which is actually really rare for a long wear powder. Let me go through exactly why this works, why it doesn't cake up on the skin or crease. Now this is made of ultra fine pigments as well, but there are the powder options which have fragrance, and then you have the version without fragrance. I personally prefer the one without fragrance. Like the fragrance one, I feel like some love it, some don't. It's really your preference, but I think it's really good that you have the option of the fragrance one or the the fragrance-free one. I think the real perk with this powder is it locks in your makeup without sucking the life out of your skin. Like, you would think that something like this, like a Huda Beauty product, would suck the life out of your skin because it's made for, like, she loves that long wear look and ultra matte, but I do feel like this really surprised me when I started using it. So I was super happy with this. I feel this is best for like oily or sweaty or combination skin types because it really does help to keep your skin looking matte throughout the day. I feel that this is a perfect powder for like humid weather. If you're out in the heat, this is my go-to. I mean, obviously I live in a really hot country, so I can tell you right now it 100% does work. I personally like using a powder puff with this and then immediately brushing it off. I actually feel like you could use a damp beauty blender to apply the powder as well. That's going to give you a really nice finish. This is the one powder I think you can do this with because it is quite a mattifying powder. You could use a damp beauty blender, press it into the powder and then press it onto the skin, and that actually gives you a really nice finish. Now, a little side note with this, when I say damp beauty blender, I mean you have literally wet it so that it's doubled in size. Then you have completely squeezed out all the water, right, with your hand. Then you get a thick kitchen towel, maybe two, wrap it around the beauty blender, squeeze it super tight so you get all the excess water out, and then get another fresh towel and do it again. And then it's a damp beauty blender because you don't want it to be so wet that when it presses on the skin, it leaves water residue. It shouldn't do that. It should have the minimal amount of water in there, but the only way to get there is to do that whole process that I just mentioned. Then I would press into the powder and then I would press onto the skin, and it's going to leave a really stunning finish. I would say use a tiny bit at a time, like don't go crazy with this powder because it can end up looking overly matte otherwise and make your skin feel a little bit tight. So you want to go a little bit light-handed with this. Next is the Milk Makeup Pore Eclipse Setting Powder. And then this is more of a newer one, I would say, out of all of them, but it has quickly become my go-to if I want a kind of very soft blurred finish to my skin, which stays matte and minimizes my pores, and it doesn't make my skin feel dry. I really like this for like a dusting of it over the skin. So I actually really like using this with a brush. Now, the reason why this is great and why it works is because it's actually infused with niacinamide, which I think is amazing. It also has pore blurring microspheres in there, which basically work to just obviously blur the pores out. So it just makes your enlarged pores look a little bit smaller. It just kind of like blurs the appearance of your pores. And I love the fact that it has niacinamide in here because not only is it setting your makeup and blurring everything, but it's also treating your skin at the same time. I think this is great for people who have textured or acne prone skin because it's gonna set, but it isn't gonna make your skin feel tight or dry. Personally, my favorite way to apply this is, like I mentioned, with a brush. So I'd get a medium fluff brush. I actually think the Hourglass Veil brush is a really good option, and you can use the smaller side of the brush for this. And I would dip it into the powder and just dust, like make sure there's not a lot of powder on there, and then I would go in very small circular movements on the face, just sort of mainly around the T-zone and areas that you want to set, but I wouldn't drag or anything because it's going to disturb the makeup underneath. But this gives you a really nice soft set. So next up is the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Soft Blur Setting Powder. Now, I really love this. I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I do. I really like this because it's actually enhancing your skin tone at the same time as setting your makeup. So it's not just there to set and seal everything in. It is actually giving you almost like a very slight radiance to your skin. It's very weightless and I feel like you can layer it as well. Definitely isn't going to give you any flashback, which is great, and it does blur the skin at the same time. Now, the reason why this works is because it has light diffusing particles in there, but it also has amino acids in there too, which help to kind of like blur those lines and like blur the pores as well. It's got squalane, or however you say that, which is obviously going to be really nice and hydrating for the skin, so it's treating your skin at the same time. It's best for, I would say, normal to combination to dry skin. Like, I feel like you can use this powder no matter what your skin type because it really does help to like blur everything, keep everything in place. It doesn't leave your skin feeling tight or like overly powdery. It's very like weightless on the skin. Personally, I love to use a puff with this. The Makeup by Mario Master Pro Puff is amazing. It's another one of my favorite powder puffs. Like, my only two favorite powder puffs are the Laura Mercier one and the Makeup by Mario one, and you can press it into the skin and then dust it off with a brush, or you can use a brush to press it into the skin. But another option with this, which I think works really well, is even if you're not wearing foundation, if you're just wearing a tinted moisturizer or a skin tint, just lightly dusting this over, and that works really well. You're good to go. Like, it does brighten the skin at the same time, which is what I love. The next one is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder. Now this isn't a loose powder, it is a pressed powder, but it is one of the most iconic powders, I would say, for anyone trying to avoid enhancing fine lines and kind of wrinkles or open pores or texture on your skin. I feel like it's a really good option. If you have a lot of lines around the eyes, I feel like this is your best option at setting your makeup, because sometimes a loose powder can be a little bit too heavy. It smooths, it softens, it sets, and it brightens the area. Now, why does this work? Why is it so good? Because it's very rare that you find a setting powder which is pressed that works so well at ensuring that you don't get the creases through the day and it doesn't look cakey. Well, this is super finely milled and it has almond oil and rose wax in there. So it gives this like soft, nourishing feel to the skin without just sitting on top of the skin. You know what I mean? You know when you sometimes use a powder and it just sits there and it's just there. You know, it's just not really doing much other than making you look cakey, and it's just sitting there above it. It doesn't really like fuse in with the rest of the makeup. Well, this does. This is amazing for dry skin or mature skin. I feel like even normal skin is fine, but it's especially good for dry or mature skin because it doesn't enhance the fine lines and wrinkles, and it's really good at setting them. So you just use a brush for this. You don't need a powder puff for this. A powder puff will be too much, I think, for this. It's amazing for the under eye areas. Honestly, for mature skin people, I feel like this is a game changer. Use the Real Technique setting brush with this. It works so well with it. It basically instantly blurs the skin and gives you an airbrush look. Plus, I love the fact that you can throw this in your bag. It's great for touch-ups through the day. If you feel like you need to brighten up your face, this is a good option. Now, I've got a few tips for you. Those were my 5 powders, but I do have some really good pro makeup artist tips for you. This is how you're going to avoid the powdery look with your powder. This is how you're going to avoid the powdery look with your setting powder. Even with the best powders, especially ones that I've mentioned, it can end up looking powdery just purely based on the technique that you've used. So when you go and get a powder and someone said it's amazing, it probably is amazing if the person has tried it and it's a pro beauty expert or pro makeup artist that's suggesting it. I'm a pro makeup artist, so you got nothing to worry about. It could be down to your application. So I really want you to understand the best way to apply it and to get the most out of your product. So firstly, you're always going to press, you're not going to swipe. You always press the powder in, especially when you've got areas of like texture or like fine lines. You want to use less than you think you need because you can always add more, but you can't kind of take away powder if you've added too much. You can always melt the powder down with a setting spray. So for example, if you've used a powder puff and you've pressed it in the powder, you've pressed it on the skin, and then you've dusted it off and you're like, okay, well, it still feels a little bit powdery to me, then there are 2 things that you can do. You have the option of which one you want to try. One is you get a setting spray, something that doesn't spray initially and cause droplets everywhere on your face. So spray it somewhere else first and then go on your face once you've got the like beginning bit of droplets out, and then you spray it all over and then you just let it settle down. That's going to take away the powdery finish to your look, and it's still allowing your powder to actually lock everything in. All it's doing is melting the powder into your skin, so you get that lived in look a little bit quicker. Secondly, you can spray your beauty blender with the setting spray and then you can press wherever you need to press. Say for example, if there's only specific areas on your face that look too powdery, this is the best option. Use a beauty blender, spray it with a setting spray, and then press it on those areas and you're good to go. Now, another tip is always use cream products underneath, because the more powder products you use, the more you're going to cake, the more you're going to make fine lines look obvious, the more the powdery finish is going to just look a bit too overly powdery and just heavy and cakey. So stick to cream products because that's your best bet, so that the only powder products you use is your setting powder and that's it. So those are my 5 powders, including my little tips and tricks there that actually work. They do what they say, and honestly I feel like they're worth the money, especially if you combine them with the technique that I've mentioned to you. You're not going to look dry, overdone, tight-faced or anything like that. Whether you want to look matte, just a little bit blurred, or a little bit radiant, there's always something you can do, like if you mix up some of these techniques and tips that I've mentioned to get the desired result that you want. Let me know in the comments which ones you've tried. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel because it really does help my channel out and I would really appreciate it. And if you've enjoyed this, let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's anything else you want. Maybe you want like a curated list of certain things that, you know, certain makeup or fashion stuff that you are interested in. Let me know and I'll see you on the next video.